Towards the end of the book, you write that I am often asked whether I regret any major decisions I made in the past. I can honestly say no. At each critical juncture in my accrediting cancellation, I was acutely aware my answer to this or that question would significantly decide my fate in life. Which is to say, each reply of mine came after careful deliberation. Contrary to popular opinion, I am not impulsive. Stubborn, yes. Impulsive, no. This incidentally reminded me of something in Samantha Power's book. In it, she frequently returns to something she calls the test, which she states, for something to be worth doing, it should be worth doing even if it ultimately fails in achieving its goal. Do you agree with Miss Samantha Powers here? Miss Samantha Power? And looking back at your academic career, which ended in you without tenure and without regular teaching or
without
working
any teacher.
Oh, yeah, without a tenure and without any teaching occasion or working opportunities, was it worth it? How do you make sense of this question?
I think it's very difficult to come up with some general formula about when, as it were, consciously self-canceling yourself is a good thing or a bad thing. Martin Luther King, as you know, he died at age 39. He was killed at age 39. Believe it or not, I mean, it's very hard to believe, but guess what? Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968, so let's call it 1970. So that was about 50 years ago, right? He was 39 years old. That means if you add 50 and 39, 89. Martin Luther King could still have been alive today. So you might ask yourself the question, it was clear that King knew he was going to get assassinated, that he had gone too far. He was rocking the boat too much. You'd be surprised to know, I think, that the last public opinion poll before King died, do you know what his disapproval rating was among American people? 75%. He was very disliked. So, you ask yourself a question. Maybe King should have toned it down a little. Maybe he shouldn't have come out so opposed to the war in Vietnam. Maybe he shouldn't have persisted in his nonviolent civil resistance. You will recall that when he was assassinated, he was planning on a Poor People's March on Washington. So you ask yourself, if King had toned it down a bit, been a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more flexible, maybe he would have had 50 additional years in his life. So, what do you say? Should he have, as the expression had it, trimmed his sails, been a little bit more realistic and pragmatic, and offered humanity 50 more years of his life? Or should he have been inflexible, unpragmatic, unwilling to retreat, and end up dead?
Yeah.
Which should he have done?
Well, I think he had a high vision in mind for himself and for the world. So, what he ended up doing, I think, was somewhat necessary for others to benefit, ultimately.
Well, that was the question with me.
Yeah.
I am confident in saying I was a good teacher. I know that. I have no doubt about that, and I'm not going to pretend to any modesty. So sometimes I calculate to myself, I had on average each year, I had on average, let's say 300 students, 350 student classes each semester, okay? That's 300 students a year. Now you multiply that by 15 years. I lost my job in 2007, we're now in 2022, so it's 15 years ago. You multiply 300 students a year by 15 years, and you get 6,500. Okay?
300 times 15, you said?
300 students a year, you multiply it by 15 years, and you get about 6,500. Is that correct? Yeah, 4,500, excuse me. 4,000. So sometimes I say to myself, if I had toned it down, if I had been more flexible, more pragmatic, I could have reached 4,500 more students. So I decided I wasn't going to back down. I'm going to stand by my beliefs. Did I make a right choice or a wrong choice? For 4,500 students couldn't benefit from my teaching, and I know I was a good teacher.
You know, in this day and age with social media and whatnot, the example you set for yourself, for others, and then inversely, the example the system sets in dealing with you, I think it's good. It's a poignant clash that can lead to something more suitable in the future, I would say.
So did I make the right decision, in your opinion?
Well, that's a very personal question, and that's a question of conscience, I would say. So I can't answer that for you. In my own, looking at history and the sacrifices that have to be made, standing by truth, you never lose out. If you read that book that I bought you, you'll see the strand of truth, virtue, justice. It always, in a sense, recompenses in the end. It comes back around at a certain point, I would say.
So basically, we reached the conclusion that
it depends what your values are.
Martin Luther King contributed more to humanity dead than if he had lived another 50 years.
Well, when you put it like that, then no. But if he lived another 50 years, he wouldn't have been as potent, maybe, as his death would have been, right? I think death brings a certain potency to a person's life and their work, especially if it's done in a, if their death, their fate happens unexpectedly in some senses, especially even more so if that fate and unexpectancy is at the hands of others, insofar as it's dealing with issues of social issues of injustice, discrimination, things of that nature. I mean, that's what happens to people leaders. Malcolm X, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. Mandela got imprisoned. He didn't get assassinated, but he got imprisoned.
Totally agree. That's what I write about in the book.
Yeah, exactly. These are, yeah. So it is pertinent. In fact, this is how you tell the difference between somebody who's real and somebody who's not real. What was their fate? Where is Obama now? Obama's in Martha's Vineyard, right?
Oh, he has several palatials. No, really, he has several
palatials. So, so, what do you think?
I told you, I think it's what you said. You said, quote, it's a personal thing, and it's very hard to... You ended up saying the same thing as me. It's very hard to come up with a general formula and say, this is the way you proceed. The only point I made was, people think that I act out irrationally, like I throw tantrums. I don't throw tantrums. Actually, I'm very conservative. I live a very conservative life. And I'm very careful about how I proceed. The idea that, oh, Norm threw another tantrum. No, Norm doesn't throw tantrums. I think through carefully the consequences of what I'm doing and whether or not to proceed along a particular path. It wasn't an easy decision for me to make the break with BDS, because then I was banned by the whole Palestine movement. I used to speak at around 40 places a year. You know what happened when I came out against BDS? They all canceled me. I didn't speak anymore.
Which is a shame in and of itself, I feel. Right?
Well,
because you were only against BDS for one specific
I thought it was a
objective
cult.
of theirs, one specific objective of theirs amongst the three objectives I think that they hearkened.
I didn't like the whole setup. I felt
gotcha.
it had a
Hypocritical.
cultish aspect to it. That
Gotcha.
there's the great leader in Ramallah, everybody has to follow the orders, and if you don't follow the orders, you're a liberal Zionist, or you're this Zionist, or that Zionist. Didn't feel right to me.
You also claim that BDS is a bit hypocritical and dishonest in their intentions, insofar as them wanting to bring millions of Palestinians back, which goes against international law in that sense.
I don't want to go into the details
Okay.
now. I'm just
Sure,
saying
sure.
it wasn't an easy, that's for another day. I'm just saying it wasn't an easy decision, but I made it. I think we're going to stop now because we're running out of gas. Let's see what time it is. It's 7:30.
7:33.
I think you have enough material to cut it down to like a good sharp half-hour interview or 45 minutes.
Tomorrow 6 to 8.
Tomorrow what?
Tomorrow 6 to 8 p.m. Can you do tomorrow 6 to 8 p.m.?
Let's look.
You don't want to?
I'm looking.
They're personal questions. Let me just review some of these questions if you don't mind. Alright, well this one is answered.